In this episode, we learn how Frida's cabin was built.
How long did it take you to get this thing up and livable?
Well, I knocked it out in a week, mostly by myself.
We'll also get a tour of the yurt they built, how to make a simple and free refrigeration unit.
What do we have here?
What I call the cold box.
So a real grocery store is 40 miles away.
Yeah.
See their off-grid electrical setup.
There's two ways to go about having solar power.
We'll also hear about Mark and Mary's life journey.
You'd go to school and speak with an Aussie accent, and then you
go
come home
and talk with a British accent.
Met Janis Joplin, Jack Cassidy, a lot of rock luminaries.
How they had similar dreams of being homesteaders.
Preparing for, at age 40 or so, preparing for the rest of my life. I was ready for the settling down, preferably with a partner, on land, living off the grid.
And the magic of how they met.
I just fell in love with Oregon in the moonlight, driving up I-5. And then I got to Eugene, and I quickly met Mark McNutt.
And there's a bigger story about that.
And hear what happens behind the scenes when a TV network comes to film you.
Is it fair to say that the DIY network is staging a lot of what they're filming?
No.
Yeah. I'd install it, and then they say, now make it look like Sonia's doing it.
And learn what not to do when building these type of structures.
It still went moldy, so when building a cob house, you want to do it slowly, building up the walls, letting things dry out. And he came over and said, there's smoke coming out of the wall.
It caught fire inside the wall in February.
Good morning. Had a nice sleep in the little bungalow on a comfy mattress. So we'll see what's going on the homestead today. Mark's cooking us up a late breakfast with blueberry pancakes.
This is the whole thing of like, no big deal. No, yeah, they fly UFOs.
Tell me about the bungalow I stayed in last night, the construction, and how long it took you.
Okay, well, we call it Frida's cabin. It is a 10 by 12 structure. We built it out of all recycled materials at a time when the county regulation was anything 10 by 12. It didn't have to be inspected. You can actually see a lot of our history around here because the county said 120 square feet was okay without a permit. Then the county went to 200 square feet, and I could show you 200 square foot structures we've done, and like the yurt. Then they went to 400 square feet now, happily. So they don't really want people to be homeless. So I just want to say as an aside, you could actually have your little unit that you build or a tiny home or something, and then you could put like the equivalent of a garage or barn next to it of a certain size. In this county, Lane County, Oregon, it'd be 20 by 20. So when you think about it, you have your living space and then you have this basically everything else. This was done in 1998, I believe, while I was waiting for my building permit. And one of the reasons I built this was to house my electronics, that is my, what you would call Wi-Fi stuff, and computer, during the building of the main house. And then in addition, I had a lot of building materials I'd gathered, and I purposely built a building to use up used materials so that I wouldn't mix used and new materials that might be compromisable in the new structure. So it has things like flooring, a tongue and groove flooring, old growth Douglas fir flooring that I wasn't going to use in the house because we do cob floors.
How long did it take you to get this thing up and livable?
Well, I knocked it out in a week, mostly by myself. I think I had a man who's here help me raise a couple of the posts straight up. The basic structure with, roof, maybe tar paper on the roof, not vinyl tar. This is a metal roof above it. So the basic structure, yeah, maybe 10 days at the most. And then I should mention that my beloved partner Mary did the finishing. She did everything that looks good in it, with a team of people, and probably has spent a few hundred hours in it.
Okay,
So,
and it was done with mostly repurposed materials? Recycled?
I'm trying to think of anything new in there. Yeah, outside the stovepipe and the stove, everything's used. With a Volkswagen square back full of stuff, a lot smaller than the VW bus. And I moved here a year and a half later with 39 truckloads of stuff. Most of it was building materials, which I gathered in that time because I was obsessed. This is my goal. This is my life. And I had a partner who was very supportive of that for the first 8 years here. Not married, went somewhere else to live happily ever after. The flooring came in later. So that's a tongue and groove with subflooring, which you can see here, by the way, only here and there you can see that's what's underneath it, and 2x8s, I think. And so this flooring came in later, and the finish work took a lot of time, you know, so it's not like, yeah, we did the whole thing in a week. That's not when I did not make that statement. So all this trim work came later. This is all Mary's work. She had other cohorts. We replaced all the windows since we did it. We put in this really tiny wood stove because that's the biggest one we need to heat this. And this wall here, I did as a straw bale wall originally, and this is when I didn't know anything about straw bale construction. What happened was stacked straw bales, and I didn't even know how to pin them properly. And we ended up taking this out, so it's not a straw bale wall anymore. You know, you wanted me to itemize some mistakes, and I didn't understand the mixture when I was fine-tuning the mixtures of the plasters. So I did a lime plaster that was 2 parts lime, I think, and 1 part cement and 1 part sand, and the skin peeled off of my hands doing this. That's too much lime. Formula we were using after that was 1 part lime, 1 part cement, 8 parts sand, you know, for, you know, certain layers. Live and learn. So we knocked that out, and then we were like, what do we do with all this earth and plaster? And we had old metal fencing and stuff like that. And what we did, oh, I guess you have to open the door to open the door. So we did this work here. So this isn't a solid slab, but it's actually a slab of cement over the taken apart old wall. So it's a way of recycling. And that's why it's, you know, a whole big thing. Now it's a heat bank, gets great morning sun and so forth. Also, this dwelling is higher than the ground. I was talking at another point about, you know, getting free building materials from the county and from the Forest Service and stuff. And we got free clay dumped here, so we got a whole pad dumped here as well. Done that more than once. I haven't put a lot of energy into, you know, this part here, but the front piece you just filmed, we did that. Mary likes doing doors, so, you know, this is Mary's brain. We have a solar system going into this house. A couple of those panels go into the Yurt house over there, and these on the side are not even hooked up. Those are from my son's country fair booth. At this time of year, we actually have more panels than we can use, including here's a 200-watt portable. Awesome for all of you traveler kind of people.
Van lifers and such?
Yeah, like you. So this is 200 watts, and so that's almost 10 amps. So this is New Year this year, but we're not even using all of our solar right now here in August.
So as far as solar goes, your combined solar, how much wattage would you say you have output-wise?
2,000.
2,000.
That we're using. So we're not using that 200, we're not using this 200. I got another 200 I'm not using, so 2,000 though. I did the math. It's like 1990 or something like that.
And that covers all your electrical needs?
Yeah, that's me, because I'm operating DC, not AC. I have inverters for AC. I'm EMF sensitive, so I don't want to feel the buzz of what I call the 60 cycle hum. And I want to talk about that for a moment, which is the Earth moves at about and vibrates at like 8 cycles per second. And that's like the note G below our hearing range. Then the 60 cycle hum, the energy of the megahertz running through your power is 60, which if it was 64, that would harmonize with your core. but it flattens it, you see. It flattens the vibe to be plugged in. That's math. I felt that in my body, and then I checked it out, and that's what it feels like in my body. It feels like I'm being flattened and dumbed down anytime I'm in a city, or, you know, yes, it's overstimulating. At the same time, it's harder for me to concentrate and harder for me to listen to nature and listen to the psychic vibes of everything. You know, it's just goes away with that 60 cycle hum. So that's the main reason I'm off the grid. And then, yes, in terms of what we do, it's off the grid, and then we're like, oh, we want to grind some nuts or whatever, we flip a switch. For many years we had laptops that, the Apple laptops, corresponded with our 24 volt system in our other house. So we actually lopped off the plugs and lopped off that little square box and hooked it up directly to, you know, so for I think 8-10 years there, our computers were running off the DC without even transferring the AC at all. Now they're about, instead of 25 volts or something like. The thing is, volts, amps, I get them mixed up sometimes. But now they're too powerful to run that way. So we have to plug them in.
Okay, so you have all the solar wattage for all your needs, and in fact you have more capacity if need be, but you simply don't need it.
You know, all bets are off in December, January. Probably we'll start whipping this stuff out and fine-tune some little jackeries or some extra, like this. See, this is a lead acid battery here, that Duracell, and so is these here are the same. We replaced these with lithium ion batteries, and so we actually have, like this one's extra. I don't even know where to put it right now. It's not dead. Lithium batteries are, you know, that's like the latest breakthrough. The breakthrough before that was LED lighting. Was really helpful for my situation. And all these things have come along since I went off the grid in 1990.
Yeah, and the lithium batteries are far preferable to the old lead acid batteries, correct?
Yes, they last longer, charge better, hold the charge more, and I'll tell you what, my poor back, you know, these weigh about 100 pounds, and, you know, the ones that they replaced probably weigh about 20, 25. And I want to talk about the Yurt a bit, which is right next to the building we were just at. First, I'm going to tell you about the thing I don't like about it: 5-foot walls at the edge. I bought it as a kit from someone who was storing it in the backyard. What I didn't tell you earlier was it came with 10 sides. This is a 12-sided Yurt, dodecahedron. 12 sides, 24 faces on the ceiling, 12 on the floor, but you can't see that anymore. And it came with the intention of having 2 open walls, which then joined to another Yurt of the same size. So apparently they kept the one and sold this one as pieces. So I saw it first that, you know, it was for sale 1987 in somebody's yard. And I went and looked at it, and there was a stack of 12 pie-shaped pieces, which were the floor. So they all come to a point in the middle. And there was 10 wall pieces. So it didn't have this one or the front door. And these joists overhead with marine vinyl roof, which has been replaced. Mary did the curtains. We did styrofoam sheets, you know, like sometimes you get the 1-inch styrofoam sheets or whatever, or 2-inch. They come with whatever product. And if they're really flat, you can use them. I mean, they're R4 per inch insulation. Well, Mary did the door, or redid the door, but originally I found the door, which was, let's see if that's all Mary door. So that's an old story, I won't tell you. So Mary did this door. It's one of the 4 that she did, with sandwich with plywood in between, with the space for a window, wood on both sides, as you can see. She loves art.
So this Yurt could be termed as a prefab Yurt in a sense, right?
Yes, it was prefab Yurt. It's also, according to, you know, guidelines and so forth, it's portable. It's not really, you know, it's on a foundation, but it's not bolted to the foundation, so it's portable. Do attempt this at home. This is like if you want to build your own structure if you can handle this 30-degree angle, it's because, you know, that's 12 into 360. But the thing I do different, these walls are only 5 feet tall on the edge. I do 6 feet. Like I said, I think it was a smaller person getting revenge building this yurt. I think, you know, my vibe is a couple breaking up and they split up the yurt and somebody got to sell out half. But all these, like these going upright and that's going the other way, that's all original. That came with it.
You lived in here for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So at the end of my relationship with my ex, I basically moved from the upper house down here. And then we broke up anyway, so I moved back to the upper house. And she lived in here. So she lived here about 5 years and then sold the land to me. I lived here with her about 2 or 3 of those years.
That was before you had many other structures on the property, is that right?
This was the structure down here.
This was the one.
So 1987 for this one, and I just showed you 1998 on. These other buildings down there didn't exist. The house is, you know, in the 2000s. Zero of anything that you see here was there. There's some old pictures of this just lonely thing in the middle of a field.
Okay, and that little wood stove beside you was sufficient for heating in the winter?
Yes, we replaced I'm trying to think of the term, but it's like you see a lot of those stoves where it's long and skinny and they're not up to code anymore, but they still can sell them as long as they're decorative, even though people don't use them for decorative. This is specially made at 4-inch pipe, tiny, 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 and because of the short ceiling here, there's not a lot of cubic footage in here. Now, we're not talking square foot. This is about 200 square feet, 16 foot around, across with cut off edges, but there isn't a lot of cubic feet here. So this more than heats it up. So what we found was in this and the other structure that the insulation was so good that most stoves were overkill. So we replaced everything with really dinky stoves. I mean, this is really cute, you know, but it's only, I think it's 8 inches. Like, I think this is about the biggest thing you could put in it. Right there.
The yurt, which was once a living space, now has a massage table in it. So the total cost of the yurt with the materials and the cinder blocks beneath it as a foundation of sorts, that was how much?
I'm sorry, I can't give you a figure with that. I can just tell you, you know, cost of cinder blocks, and then many things were replaced, mostly the roof. And the reason I'm so dicey on it is I did not build the structure. A lot of things have been worked on. So this too has a different floor put over the old floor. So this is not the floor that came with it. Basically, we put 1/2-inch plywood over everything.
Okay, so you think you did this for under $2,000 maybe?
Again, I didn't pay anything for the roof. That was someone else. But yeah, I invested $100 in this. Yeah, because there was a point where actually I put plywood around the side before I put the siding on. There's just so many things to upgrade. It was a pretty funky structure.
A nice place for the grandkids to come and play.
Solar panels on the roof. The wires come down actually inside the front of the house, under the floor, and come up here. They come up there, and they go through this big thing, which I don't quite
Brain. It's
know.
a brain.
It's a brain. This is the charge controller. The charge controller moderates the amount of electricity coming in and what's going out.
In this case, blinking green is like everything's normal.
Right, and it's almost full. Here's our battery bank down here. In the last couple of years, we went to these lithium iron phosphate batteries. Far superior to the old lead acid things. Let alone the fact that I can pick them up. They only weigh 25 pounds.
Right, whereas the lead battery would probably be about 60 to 80 pounds.
More than that.
Yeah, the big ones we saw out in the workshop. They're like gigantic things like this.
Which we filmed earlier.
Back-breaking for 2 people.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
way
where is
efficient. Then electricity comes in, and then it goes out from here. This is the DC, the 12-volt DC panel for all the lights. But I misspoke. It's 24 volts. All our lighting is
24 volt DC.
24 volt DC. Because of the long runs in the house, you couldn't afford the wiring to carry the DC that far.
Oh, there it is.
But 24 volts has more power. Then some of that gets converted by this gadget into 12 volts, and that's the 12 volt.
So is that an
Fit.
inverter up there?
Yeah, it inverts.
Well, that inverts from 24 to 12, so it's not a
It downgrades it.
It's DC to DC.
Okay.
It just downgrades it from 24, because the whole system is wired to 24 volts. Then a little bit of it is downgraded to 12 volts, so we can run our 12 volt devices.
Okay, so it's not a true inverter, it's just
No.
a downgrader.
It's just a downgrader.
So we don't have 24 volt devices, just lights.
Yeah, just lights.
Right.
Okay.
And the
And then we
fridge.
don't have, and then we have 110 devices and 12 volt devices.
So then power comes through. This
This is your inverter.
is the inverter.
That's circa year 2000. We just had it rebuilt.
No, I bought a new one.
No, she bought a new one.
Yeah, I had it rebuilt. It lasted a year, so then I bought a new one, which is pretty much the same as the original one. And then there's the 110 power fuse box,
Okay, so there's your
which is for
That's
the
your
power outlets.
that's your breaker box right there.
Yeah, and that goes to all the power outlets for plugging in.
We have the required amount, one every 12 feet, everywhere in the house. Is that on right now?
No,
Turn it on, Mary.
we just turn it on when we need
Look,
it.
we turned it on. Now we'll turn it off.
Yeah.
That
So-
powers the entire, that little switch power, like, activates everything, every
Yeah.
110 in the house.
What I want to say is that there's two ways to go about having solar power. And one way is what we've done. And the other way, which is kind of more typical, is people spend $30,000-$40,000 on their solar array, convert everything to 110, and then just run all their freezers and everything like it's a regular house. And you can do that. But we bought our system for $3,000
For,
instead of $30,000.
and that
And
other
that was
system
the-
wouldn't work for me. I don't care if I have $1 million.
Because
It's still,
you run everything on 110, then you're still getting that.
that 60 cycle hum that I described earlier,
Yes, that vibrational.
which flattens your energy.
Yes, and big part of being off the grid is we wanted that like quiet and mellow place without all those EMFs running around the place. So therefore, we've adapted our lifestyle, and we have 24 volt LED lights, which changed our life. When we started this, these weren't available,
LED's awesome.
and we started out with compact fluorescent lights, the little curled up fluorescent tubes. A 15-watt compact fluorescent was equal to a 60-watt incandescent light, but now I can have a 7-watt LED light, so half of the compact fluorescents. As soon as I went to all LED light bulbs, because they were available, we never ran out of power. We used to run out of power in the winter, and now we don't. And now we have these batteries. I can run a refrigerator, a washing machine.
You can run everything,
Yeah,
just like a regular house.
yes. But I don't have, but without having this turned on all the time. You just turn it on when you use it.
Right.
Like the refrigerator's 24 volt, and the
Yeah.
the washing machine is new, so I don't know what it is.
It's
Is it DC? Or,
it's-
no, it's AC.
no, it's AC 400 watts.
Right. Okay. But
It's
the
a little-
refrigerator runs without.
Yeah, it's just a small. You can show it if you want. It's just a small washing machine that they call a portable washing machine that's designed for using in apartments.
Okay.
Well, that's,
So this is your washing machine here.
Yeah,
we just
and
replaced
so
it.
yeah, we just replaced it. It's slightly bigger than the one that started leaking like crazy. Our water is flowing in all the time. The electricity is coming in all the time.
In the daytime.
In the daytime, but in increments. But if I had a great big regular washing machine, I would use up a ton of water and a ton of electricity all at once. But by having a small washing machine and doing many small loads, I'm using the resources at a slower rate. And so that works better for us. Instead of using up all their water, oh, all the water's gone, and I have to wait for the water to resupply itself.
Right, so you're rationing out your resources.
Yeah.
That's right.
Living on a budget.
Yeah.
So how did you guys end up in Oregon?
Well, we ended up separate. We started separately. I moved here 50 years ago in 1975. I had a couple of friends that lived here. I lived on the East Coast growing up, but I was attracted to Oregon in particular because it had a lot of green dots on the map. You know, basically, if you see the scenic routes on the highway maps and they have green dots, it's like that's the scenic route. And it was all over the place around Eugene. I was like, I want to live there. Oh, my friend moved there. Oh, here's this letter from my friend. Oh, it's not even from him. It's from another friend inviting me to live here. So at 21, I moved here. I got out of my car with my partner and joined a conversation. My first conversation I ever heard in Eugene was about spirits in the afterlife. And I was like, I'm home.
How about you, Mary?
I was in Australia preparing for, at age 40 or so, preparing for the rest of my life. I was ready for the settling down, preferably with a partner, on land, living off the grid. And there were a series of bands, and I went to Berkeley to be with somebody in Berkeley. That didn't work out, and then I quickly met some people and was invited to go on a road tour up the West Coast, and I got to Eugene, and traveling up I-5 even at night, and it must have been a full moon night because I could see all the hills and going, wow, I really like Oregon. I just fell in love with Oregon in the moonlight driving up I-5. And then I got to Eugene and I quickly met Mark McNutt.
And there's a bigger story about that.
This is a freak story.
Yeah, the bigger story was I had mentioned I settled here with another partner and our small child, and that went okay for 8 years as we slowly built things. And then we broke up, and I was not happy for a while, about 8-9 months. And in the meantime, I met somebody who was very helpful in giving me psychic readings in exchange for astrology and base lessons, I think. And at some point in this person's channelings, she mentioned about a possible partner and that I should see myself as a pink lotus flower unfolding and that we could do this work together. I went home and meditated on seeing myself as a pink lotus flower unfolding for months. And meanwhile, Mary's in Australia, and she tells me that she found a flyer on her porch for a meditation group or something with a pink or red lotus flower unfolding on it. And so she starts meditating on the same image at the same time. What happened physically with her passage here, but we met within 3 weeks of her coming to Oregon, to the United States for the first time, and I proposed marriage 17 days after we met.
So where and how did you meet?
Oh, in Eugene, because the person who invited me to come up on a road trip to the West Coast and to Eugene was the person who'd been giving him psychic readings.
And the thing, if you know this little thing, a lot of people who are psychic mediums, when they're not in a trance state, they don't remember any of this stuff. So I told this young woman to find this person for me that, and there's attributes, there's poetry I wrote, and it's her. I was staying at a friend's house the night before we met and stayed overnight. And then I got up in the morning and I said, oh, my friend so-and-so is across the street. I wonder if she got back from Berkeley. And I called up and she's all, like tired. And she goes, oh, we got in really late. Me and my Australian healer friend, Mary. And I was like, ding, that's her. And then she says, but don't talk her ear off because she's very sensitive. So I walked to the door and I already knew.
He walked in the door. And I'd already gotten ready to give somebody a shiatsu, because that's what I do.
Dressed totally in white.
Yeah. And this guy walks through the door, and I go, oh, he looks nice. Too bad I'm giving a shiatsu now. But he did come in and we went blah, 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 blah. And then we agreed to meet afterwards at the Saturday market. And that evening, that very evening, he brought me out here to Deadwood.
We were going to do a trade for shiatsu for astrology.
Yeah, we're not
We're
done.
just not done. Yeah.
And so when we got here, I mean, I had no idea where I was, in the dark, in the forest, and it was up the hill. It wasn't, this house wasn't built, it was up the hill. I couldn't even see the cabin in the woods. And there's a little voice in my head going, I'm home, I'm home. And it's like, what?
So she's been in the United
What?
States for about 3 weeks.
What am I saying?
Doesn't,
oh, I'm
doesn't
home,
even
I'm
know this
home.
weird guy, you know.
It was hilarious. Well, after a week or two, I was sitting in the yard and I just felt like the trees invited me to stay, you know. It's just, and I went inside and I said, hey, you know what? The trees invited me. And he went, oh, good, you're the right one for me then.
And I'm like, okay, you know, because it's almost like a secret password or something, you know. So it was so spot on. So,
yeah. There was an idea that I should rent this really cheap room in the house in Eugene where I was brought to, where I landed. And that was the psychic friend's idea, like, oh, you should rent this room for like $200 a month or something. And even then that was super cheap. But I'm out here and I'm in the creek and having fun, and I just thought, I'm going to go for it. And I turned to him and said, you know, I'm not interested in hanging out in Eugene. I'll just be waiting for you to show up. I want to be here. And he goes, okay. I just got really forward because there was too many relationships where I just kind of held back or was shy and didn't go for it.
And I, similar for me, I had to be, you know, I had just experienced a breakup after 9 years and was like, well, I really want a serious relationship. I don't want to just dig around here because life moves on and it's getting real. And it was an important time to evolve.
And it really cinched it for me was two things. One was I'd been studying herbalism in Australia, but a lot of the herbs didn't even grow there. And he took me on a walk around the land right away, and it's like, oh, they're all here.
There they are.
Here's all those herbs I studied, you know. And then we were driving to town, and he said, oh, I've got this organization called Arius, Aerious, a non-profit. I'm like, oh yeah, what's that about? He said, well, it's about earth and sky and grounding the sky energy into the earth. I went, oh, I know about that, because I'd been doing all these studies also through Aikido and Shiatsu and macrobiotics, which was all about getting really centered and grounded.
Yeah.
And growing tall like a tree, and your roots are in the earth and your branches are up in the sky, and you're just like grounding the spiritual energy. And so that, and then we had very similar visions,
the 9-star key and the
visions in life, but about living out in the woods and being off the grid and
the
living
sustainability
and all of that. And it's what I was looking for in my life. I just didn't expect it to be in North America. I thought it would be in northern New South Wales, but it was here, so I went for it.
Since I was a kid, I wanted to go back to the land, and many people speak of back to the land, and they've never. I'm from about 7 to 10 generations of basically white people in America. We were always on the land. We weren't the city dwellers. We were the ones that would go to the frontier and clear the forest and build the log home and, you know, start from scratch. And then when those things turned into towns, we would go to the next one, gradually going west. I'm only about 15 air miles from the ocean now, so we've hit about the limit on that. But, you know, starting in Virginia in the 17 or 1600s. And so that's in my blood and bones. And the only generation that was not on the land for me was my parents. Having a lot to do with my dad's work and with World War II and the way it was then. I'm happy to go back to land. It wasn't a stretch for me. It wasn't like some idea I had later in life. It was something from the time I was a child I knew I was going to do. And I was always building forts and things like that. And I grew up in a house that my dad built, and so I actually helped build that house, being taught how to mix cement when I'm 3 years old. So that was always big for me. I moved out here to this place when I was turning 30 and had my third child. It was sort of like I wanted to have land first and then have my family, but that didn't happen that way. I had small children. It made it a little harder. I've been able to build my dream from the bottom up here, you know. This was all bare land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mary, you had a similar dream, right?
Yes. Yeah, which developed, around age 28 to 30.
The age I was when I got this place.
That's right. And so I had a similar dream develop then about wanting to live independently and self-sufficiently and all of that. And I was actually inspired when I was in Spain, and I was living in Spain then, and I got to look at a wonderful, huge book that had been written by an English person, like the How to Do It manual of how to make your own hot water and how to make your own sandals, and it was just very inspiring, and like, I want this. So I set out to do it with a Spanish partner at the time, but it didn't work out. Then I went back to Australia, and I'm living in cities, but always with that view. I was like, I want to get into doing this lifestyle. I grew up rurally. I've spent my life a good balance of being rural and cityfied, actually. So I'm kind of happy in both environments, but I'm much happier living here in the woods. Whenever I've lived in cities, it's like, where's the park? Where's my escape route to the villages?
Yeah, I like doing the opposite of what a lot of people like. I like living in the boonies and then visiting cities.
Well, that's what we
and
do
we have
now.
that in common, and that's what we're doing now these days.
We've gone on vacation to New York and to Washington, D.C.
And Barcelona.
and Barcelona. And then we come back to the woods.
You grew up about 30 miles outside of Sydney, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was in the what they call a green belt area. My family had 3 acres of land, and other people around had 5, 10, or 15. We somehow managed to get a smaller parcel, and it was the area where they grew all the produce for the Sydney markets for people to eat in the city. So there was a lot of tomato farms really popular, and other vegetables. Sadly, all of that's been moved up to Queensland now, so Sydney doesn't even get fresh produce. It's all shipped down from Queensland. And that area has become the mega mansion place. It's like, anyway, it's still a greenbelt area, and it took a long time for the urbanization. It's kind of pushing on its doorsteps now. And so moving here, it's a similar density of population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of 5, 10, and 15 acre places around here.
Yes,
Or 15.
just a similar density of population. But this is more verdant and luxurious with the high rainfall. Also to note that my parents were immigrants, so they bought that land and settled there because the land was really cheap. It was in the 1950s, but it was $100 an acre.
Wow.
Well, pounds. It was actually pounds then. £100 an acre. And then my mother had some money. My dad built a modest house, not a great big one like this. But we had that in common, that our dads built their own houses.
We also got to see each other's dad's houses. You know?
Yeah, we did.
'Cause I got to see it
Yeah.
first shortly before it got torn down.
And then we went to see his. Yeah, so that's a big childhood memory of mine of building the house. I still remember that clearly when I was
So we have shared.
5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our dads built our houses on pretty much the same years as well.
So the concept of building our own house was not unusual or surprising, because that's the way we grew up, with dads that built things.
Right. And Mark, you grew up in a more suburban or urban environment.
Yes. It was suburban. What you call a bedroom community, just outside of New York City, by the George Washington Bridge and the Palisades in New Jersey, right up in the corner. There's kind of a recurring joke. They say, I'm from New Jersey, and then they say, what exit? and we're north of anything, so it's like past north of any exit is the way to describe it to a New Yorker or person from there. There was woods around us. I went back there for my 50th high school reunion, and there's still woods there. Not as much, but it didn't turn into just schlocky suburbs. That being said, I grew up in every other house except I think one on our street was a tract home built in the early 1950s, late 1950s maybe. And my dad built the house that I grew up in. We moved in there when I was 11 months old. So during the time I was in the womb and my first year of life, and so really my first 10 years of life building there and living there. And it was 5,000 square feet. They've now put another story on it, so it's 8,000 square feet now on a half a wooded acre. And that sounds like I grew up rich, and I did not. It was just land is wealth in my genetics. It's like most good land. My dad would say, son, get real estate because God's not making any more of it. Well, that's not really true. There's little volcanic islands popping up and stuff going away.
It was really lovely. It was just very lovely when we went
The place
there.
I grew up?
Yeah. We caught a bus to the area and walked a few blocks to get there, and we were walking down the road, and then there's all these tall trees with a house amongst them at the end. I went like, oh, there it is. Because I'd seen it in photographs, and then I just, oh, look, there it is.
It was on steep land, so it's one story on one side and two stories on the other side. And my dad did 9 terraces of about 5 feet tall each of rock.
From the road, it's not this great big tall 3-story house.
It's subtle, isn't it?
It's subtle,
And it's all wooded.
Yeah.
My sister used to have to go to the roof of the house to get a tan because there was no place where there wasn't shady in the yard because my dad was obsessed with trees. He was a newspaper editor. He was not a builder. He's doing stuff like covering the UN and then coming home and building. And I remember quite a few nights where he brought home the entire Irish delegation and those from the UN, and those guys can party. So I grew up in a very interesting way. I should also mention my mom and dad met at the Pentagon, and my mom worked on and off at the Pentagon.
And he was a reporter for UPI, is that right?
He was the editor of the foreign desk for the UPI. He was, one of the top men. He was one of the top dudes. And then he got a better job at the New York Times. So he was the associate editor and manager of the New York Times news service. So he dealt with special features. I listened to, the Puzzler with, what's his name, Will Shortz. And I'm like, yep, my dad used to be, his boss. I used to get free tickets to shows like the Fillmore and Academy of Music and stuff. If the New York Times reviewer didn't want them, I got New York Times reviewers second row center seats if I wanted. So that's how I grew up. It's a good thing to put that in there, and you look at this environment and you compare it. I've met Janis Joplin, Jack Cassidy, a lot of rock luminaries, and got to be backstage a lot.
And on the other hand, my parents were from London, and they enjoyed classical music and ballet and theater. We were brought up with this culture going on in our lives, even though we lived out where all the tomatoes and green beans are being grown, amongst the Italian immigrants who were differently oriented.
And of course, Mary grew up with British culture in a British household in Australia, and I was clearly American culture, but what was odd was that I was, my parents were Southerners. New York is very, very ethnic in a way of everybody's got their groups, and it's really, there's a lot of awareness of that. There isn't a lot of Southern transplants in New York, so they always thought I talked with a funny accent. And I'm probably not in New York now because most people in New York or New Jersey or whatever are related to other people in that bioregion. And so it's kind of harder to leave if you have a lot of roots there. Well, I had no roots there except the house I grew up in.
And then speaking of accents, tell me about what happened when you were a kid with your accent, because you were raised with British parents, but yet you were raised in Australia, so
Yeah,
all the
that's right.
kids
I had
around
to-
you had Aussie accents.
Yeah, I had to adopt two ways of speaking, just to stay out of trouble.
Can I add that your sister, who's a few years younger than you and born in Australia, you just about need subtitles to hear, or I do, hello, Mark, what? It's just very, what an American would call Crocodile Dundee style or something, it's just, she is so Australian sounding.
Yeah,
But your parents didn't want you to speak with an Aussie accent, is that
no,
correct?
they didn't.
They
All
wanted
the
you to...
Australian terminology, but I was 3 years older than my sister, so she got away with a lot more things than I did. The oldest child
You
always
always
has
hear
it
that,
tougher.
yeah.
So you'd go to school and speak with an Aussie accent, and then you
And
come
go home and talk with a British accent. Just one day, my mother's correcting me. I'm like, oh, okay. I have to talk like that at school and like this at home. Oh, I can do this. It's okay. Yeah, and then I lived in Spain for a long time, and I go to England, and they think that I was Spanish because I'd copped a Spanish accent living. Become an accent chameleon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me, like, people who don't lose, live in different places, and don't lose the accent after decades or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I don't
Well,
hold
people
on to it either.
No, people still pick up on it, but less now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty thick when you got here.
Of course.
Now it's more like colloquialisms that you use sometimes. You're like, what?
Yeah. But I was shocked when I was very first arrived, and I'm in Berkeley, and I went into a supermarket, and the cashiers were looking at each other and going, "What's she saying?" They couldn't understand me at all.
And we walked into a supermarket, and it was like, oh, shopping trolleys. It's like, yeah, for example, words like that.
Yeah, shopping carts, shopping trolleys.
Now, you guys have been together for how long?
33 years.
Yes.
I am a musician, and I play a number of instruments. Most people know me as a drummer under my other spirit name, Hummingbird, and I was involved in 10 years of singing live, as Mary was also the cook, one of the progenitors of that gathering. So I've done a lot of processional work, like leading spiral dances and things like that at fairy worlds and stuff like that. But my music, I play at home. I play a lot more stringed instruments, and I had a sister that basically bought me everything, like one birthday after another. So I'm pretty decked with instruments, and I can play most of them. So I should say I don't play woodwinds and brass. That's an easier way of saying what I play. I don't sing that much, but it's part of it. People know me mainly as an astrologer, Mark S. McNutt. You can Google that, and I also have my website is called astrowizardry.com. I can be reached at astrowizardry@gmail.
Mark planted the trees you see behind the house in 1984, and that's how tall they've grown. And this huge sequoia right there, he planted that in 1986. It was a live Christmas tree. So tell me about when the DIY network came here to film you guys.
Okay, it was 2017, which was the summer of the solar eclipse, which was almost completely total here. There was a young woman came to us where she had been given an offer to be filmed doing a cob cottage product. She learned how to do cobbing, which is a mixture that's a lot like adobe I could talk about, and did 4 years of experience pretty much all over the world. I think she turned 21 when she was here.
20, actually.
Yeah, 20. That's right. She showed up when she was 19 with this project and turned 20, and it was exactly the same age as this kiosk that we had built. And so the contract was to film a start-to-finish project in 7 weeks. That would be like building the building, cobbing 3 layers of cob on each side and waiting for each layer to dry.
It was kind of too quick. Normally it would take like a year or two.
I think about 15 months to do that, to do what they were
well,
asking.
We had a lot of people here helping. She called in a lot of people, and it was a marathon. We didn't have a day off. My supposed days off, I went to town and got supplies and came back again.
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
10 hours a day. Sonia Havel, who, spearheaded it, was the star of this production. I think she got 1 day off and you got none or something like
No,
that.
yeah, well, actual days off, not really, because like
Yeah,
I said,
no,
I
I
went to
got
town to
3.
do errands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did the carpentry for putting in the windows and such, using recycled wood from a barn, from the
That's
stalls of a horse barn that we were suddenly given. And
That's right.
yeah, they
Yeah.
were tongue and groove, and I sliced off the tongues to make it flat and put
So-
this framing in that somehow I made it be horizontal and perpendicular inside a frame that was completely catawampus and nothing was horizontal or perpendicular.
When I first built that kiosk, it had no walls. It was called cedar hens because it was cedar uprights that had died 100 years before. And it was the rebellion thing because it's 8-sided, and I was like, I'm not going to measure anything on this, and to do this sort of like rebellious thing because our house has 49 pages of calculations and you had to follow the game plan. So then we're putting sides on this thing, and Sonia, bless her heart, really good at carving, really good at organizing her crew, but she'd never done carpentry, windows, doors.
And they made me look like she was doing it. I had
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
I'd install it, and then they say, now make it look like Sonia's doing it. Here's Sonia, who's never handled a drill. Put this screw in here.
Yeah, and the funniest one was the chainsaw. And again, I'm not demeaning Sonia because she was awesome
She
and
was
we got
really
along.
Talented, but it was outside of her realm of experience. But they wanted to look like she was building her cabin that she's going to live in.
Yeah, so there's, oh yeah, and
We
she
had
never
to-
was going to live there.
And now we had to hurry up and finish because the rain was coming. And the truth was, Sonia had tickets to go to Belgium.
Yeah, to go to college in Belgium. So she was never going to live here.
No.
But and the cover story started out that the way the structure of the DIY and other building series like this is, they do, or remodel, they do it like where the amazed owner gets their mind blown at the end with a tour, and it's called the reveal. And so they go, oh wow, look at this. But we were supposed to be the ones that were amazed, but we were out there every day, and there was so much footage of us doing important stuff that they abandoned that. So they got Sonia's sister to play that part, even though Sonia's sister had been here a lot as well. The last thing they filmed was everybody arriving. So, and it sounds like it's not truthful. No, it represented the build. It represented the truth. It was like stage reenactments was a lot of what was going on here. It was so far to food and stuff that they took the per diem for the camera crew and so forth, which included the drone crew. We set up a couple of easy ups and created an outdoor kitchen and a hangout spot there, and they paid for the food and actually paid for Sonia's mother to cook, even though Mary's a great cook, but she was also a great builder.
Yeah, well, I was needed doing other things. So.
Yeah. So
Anyway, it was fun. It was a fun experience.
it was a lot of work, but it was fun. It
Yeah.
took our whole rest of the summer.
How far is the nearest grocery store from here?
10 miles.
Well, that doesn't count.
Yeah,
Edward's
you can
store
get gas.
doesn't count as a grocery
You can get
store.
gas, beer, and chips, and hang out in the bar in 10 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
23 to a basic one, and almost 40 to Florence.
So a real grocery store is 40 miles away.
Yeah. Well,
Like a
there's-
really in-depth one, you know.
Yeah, there's a small supermarket in Mapleton, 26 miles away, but you really wouldn't want to go there for your, you know.
We don't eat American, we don't eat mainstream food, so like
Well-
if you want something organic, yeah, it's probably 40 miles.
Is
Yeah.
it fair to say that the DIY network is staging a lot of what they're filming?
No.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's reenactments. They certainly didn't try to on to have arguments and things like that. It wasn't about conflict. It was
No,
about
just more reenactment.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything like super staged. It was just like you know, like, well, I did it, and they're like, okay, make it look like Sonia did it. But there was only a couple of times.
Yeah, and everything we described that sounded like the, you know, a deviation or whatever, it represented, it was 97%
And then, but
true.
a lot of it, there was like over dramatization of things because they think that's.
If this window doesn't fit,
could-
costs will skyrocket.
Well,
Yeah,
set
the
the schedule
skyrocket
back
thing.
for weeks, you know.
Yeah, that stuff like that. So stay tuned after this commercial, you know. They did a lot of that. And that's why there's 3 clips of me about to knock down the center beam, and, you know, it possibly could all fall down and kill us. And I'm like, be ready to run if this goes, you know, and they're like, we'll come back after the commercial. And then they come back and they're like, I'm going, be ready to run. And then, you know, it's like stuff like that. They made it entertaining.
Yeah.
And Sonia's, you know, let's be honest, she's easy on the eye. She's nice to look at.
Yeah.
So that didn't hurt at all either.
And they spent 7 weeks here filming?
Yeah. So
well, they came and went, and at first they weren't here so much, and then as time went on, they were here more and more until there was somebody here like all the time, and they.
By somebody we mean between 2 and 7 people. Yeah, filming.
Yeah.
Okay. And
There was always at least 2 people.
Yeah.
Or 3, because they'd have the sound person, the film man, the cameraman, and the
Director?
the assistant director.
Yeah.
And so they just stayed until the Cobb Cottage was
They
completed?
didn't stay here.
No.
They would stay in Florence.
The producer
Okay.
of the whole thing flew out from New York, I think, twice, and stayed in a tent, at least the first time.
The first time he
Second time,
stayed-
he's like, no, I'll do the hotel like 40 miles away.
I'll commute.
Yeah. But he's from New York.
They kind of had to because they could
Edit. What?
charge up their equipment,
Yeah.
because they had to recharge all their equipment, and we didn't have. We had less power then. We didn't
Yeah,
have,
we wouldn't have a problem with that now.
no.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of equipment
They
to
did.
charge up, and so they did charge some things here, but there was a lot of stuff.
So they basically hung out until the Cobb Cottage was finished.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 7 weeks. There you go.
yeah.
So everybody out there, you can build a Cobb Cottage in 7 weeks if you have any idea of what you might be
Okay.
doing.
No.
We
No.
would not
No.
advise that,
No,
because
do not say that.
Okay.
no, you can't, because putting that much clay, wet clay on top of wet clay, it doesn't dry right.
Right.
And so a lot of it molded, and that first winter I spent a lot of time scraping out mold spots.
And the thing is, if you put it on wet, potentially the wet can soak into the bales and rot them. Oh yeah, so there's cob on either side with half bale, straw bale in between.
In some part.
Yeah. Anyway, it caught fire inside the wall in February from rotting.
Because of the moisture content
moisture.
was so high.
Yeah. So it's
And-
the opposite of 7 weeks. I said a few paragraphs back, it's a 15-month project. You know.
Yeah. There was a few days there where we were trying really hard to get it to dry out enough so that we could put finish plaster on. And we had fans in there, we had propane heaters in there, we lit the little fireplace that's in there, just doing anything to get airflow and heat inside there to dry it out enough to put a finished plaster on.
We are definitely not in the desert here.
And
It is
it's-
very humid.
It still went moldy. So when building a cob house, you want to do it in slowly building up the walls, letting things dry out as you go.
3 layers on each side.
And and when you put layer, at least to leather hard. You know, you can't just keep putting it on. You'll get mold. And as you said, there was this like combustion thing happened. And one of the builder volunteers came back and was actually staying in there, even though there was a lot of moisture. And he came over and said, "There's smoke coming out of the wall."
Truly, this is
And
a true story.
And part of it was that, unbeknownst to me, somebody thought they were being helpful when they stacked a load of wood up against the wall of the building
On the other side.
On the other
On the
side.
outside.
On the outside. And so
It's got to breathe.
it's got to breathe. so the airflow was blocked, and that's the part that that caught fire because it couldn't breathe properly to dry out efficiently. And I had that in our house. It didn't catch fire, but it grew very moldy because we'd stacked things in front of a wet wall. And the wall started growing. All the seeds in the straw started sprouting, and the wall went moldy.
Straw technically doesn't have seeds, but it really does have some.
But it does have
That's
some
the difference between straw and
hay.
hay. Yeah, hay has got seeds. Straw technically doesn't.
So hay is the top of the plant, which is the seed heads, and that's the feed for the plant. And then the chaff, which is the stalks underneath, that's the straw and is usually used as bedding material.
And that's the stuff you build with. So when people say hay bale house,
or hay house,
no,
it's
it's not a hay house.
It's a straw
It's
house.
a straw bale house. One factor is they did part of the walls in half bales where the straw bale was cut in half, and I actually think that would be a reasonable solution these days because that's R20 instead of R40 or whatever. And the funny thing about that was filming it, you'll just see in the footage Sonia cutting the bale in half. Well, it's like she never cut bales before, and so I started up the chainsaw and I said, do this, and when you're almost done you pull it back and make sure it doesn't catch fire. And then they filmed her cutting the bales apart, half bales, and there was also a rammed earth technique that was used in other places.
Yeah.
And there were several techniques used.
But I want to clarify that the half bales were cut lengthwise.
Right, yes.
So that you made...
They're less wide.
So you made an 18-inch wide bale into 9 inches wide.
Yeah. Did you put the food in? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to let him loose over here and see what happens.
Don't let him loose. He'll run
Now
away
he'll run back.
again.
Inside here is Zolar. He's quite a large cat, and he is the great-granddad of all the other cats here. So we have a cat reunion. This was a cat that was, we thought, lost or escaped or whatever for how long? A year?
Went wild.
Went wild for about over a year, huh?
Yeah.
And now the neighbor found the cat and brought the cat back.
He's actually the great-grandpa. He's the father of the grandpa.
Oh, okay.
He's the elder. He's the patriarch of the Paisley Pride of Yard Lions. He's the wise 4-year-old cat.
We haven't seen him for over a year. He showed up at our neighbor's house. We're down here at our hip camp site. If you would like to experience this place for real, please find us on a hip camp at Living Well Nature Spirit Sanctuary.
And it is a place of nature, and it's a place of nature spirit. So this is one of our campsites on Deadwood Creek here. We'd like to share it with others for your short-term stay. We have trails. You can go across this bridge here. We have trails going up into the woods. There's this creek which has some deeper holes. It's lovely for splashing in. And generally people arrive here and they just relax, and we hear lots of gaiety and laughter floating up from the creek. And you have the option of interacting with us and being given tours, or just hanging out by yourself privately down here. There's lots of places you can go camping. If you go to my website, you can also get to my YouTube channel. So I too have a YouTube channel, or we do, called Arius News. But most of what's been on it the last 5 years or so has been astrological updates. So I'd love for it to be visited and liked there as well. And it's a monthly, not a reading for all the planets, but it's kind of like a commentary. 15 minutes at a shot, because that's a good absorption level. So love to do that once a month. And I have a local cinematographer here in the neighborhood.
And if you would like to see these guys on YouTube, go to Arius News, right?
Yes, absolutely. Arius is like Sirius with an A, so A-E-R-I-O-U-S News, one word.
I hope you enjoyed being out here in Oregon with Homesteaders Mark and Mary. Don't forget to give me a like in the video, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is the Rockhopper. I'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.